although only respect recovered from an illness, I decided to come myself to defend the cause of my people before the Council of the League of Nations. I hope, however, that the Council will be good enough to excuse me from reading the whole of my declaration and will allow Atotazaz, permanent delegate to the League of Nations, to read it in my place.
Welcome to the latest feature for the Yakare History YouTube channel, where we delve into the extraordinary life, reign and ultimate demise of Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia's last emperor. Before we launch into the story, a quick note. If you're passionate about deep diving into African history, be sure to visit our Yakare History Shop, where you'll find exclusive prints, books and memorabilia that bring the past alive and support our mission of exploring and preserving forgotten truths. 1. A modernizer on the African stage. In the 1950s and 60s, Ethiopia stood out in Africa, ancient, yet trying to modernize. Under Haile Selassie's leadership, the nation sought to balance tradition and modernity, sovereignty and global alignment. Ethiopia's reliance on foreign aid was substantial, especially from the United States, which viewed the Horn of Africa as a strategic Cold War battleground. Haile Selassie was no passive recipient. He negotiated, leveraged and played competing powers. In 1959, he visited the Soviet Union and was warmly received by Premier Nikita Khrushchev, who promised Ethiopia over $100 million in development aid. Shortly after, he traveled to the People's Republic of China and met with Premier Zhou Enlai to seek additional support. By cultivating these relationships, the emperor secured a stronger hand with the West, particularly Washington, which feared Soviet influence in Africa. Domestically and internationally, Haile Selassie projected Ethiopia as a pivotal nation deserving of Western patronage, while keeping other alliances quietly operational. His influence extended from diplomacy into global culture. In 1966, he visited Jamaica, where the Rastafarian community hailed him as the King of Kings, the prophesied figure in the Book of Revelation. 2. Cracks at home, Eritrea, and the erosion of authority. Despite these global victories, the emperor's grip at home began to weaken, especially through his frequent travels and increasing detachment from domestic issues. One of the most volatile issues was Eritrea. In 1962, he dissolved the federation between Ethiopia and Eritrea, incorporating Eritrea as Ethiopia's 14th province. This decision triggered intense backlash among many Eritreans, who saw it as a threat to their autonomy. Guerrilla movements immediately sprang up, most prominently the Muslim-oriented Eritrean Liberation Front, ELF, which sought an independent Arab Islamic state. These groups soon fought not only Ethiopian authorities, but also each other, plunging Eritrea into a protracted civil war. Within Ethiopia's leadership, tensions deepened. The emperor's prime minister pushed for direct military rule over Eritrea. Meanwhile, Ras Aserot Kasasa, Eritrea's governor-general, believed he understood the region better and opposed militarization. Eventually, the emperor authorized a large-scale offensive, igniting a full-blown civil war in Eritrea that raged for decades. These internal fractures signaled deeper problems within Selassie's regime, problems he failed to decisively address. 3. The Cold War, shifts and the decline of Western support. Internationally, the tide was turning. In 1968, the unexpected election of Richard Nixon in the United States marked a shift in American foreign policy, with direct consequences for Ethiopia. The US-Ethiopian alliance had been bolstered by the US's huge communications and intelligence station, known as CAGNU in Asmara, Eritrea, which monitored the Red Sea region and underpinned American military aid. But by the early 1970s, advances in satellite technology reduced the station's strategic value. Washington began scaling back its commitments. Military aid dropped, for instance, from $12 million in 1971 to $10.8 million the same year. In August 1973, the U.S. announced the closure of the Kagnew station and moved its regional HQ from Addis Ababa to Nairobi. Ethiopia's privileged position in the Cold War architecture was eroding, and the emperor felt the impact. Desperate, he turned back to the Soviet bloc in late 1973, traveling once more to Moscow to persuade the Kremlin to cease arming Somalia's president, Siad Barre. His reception was lukewarm. The Soviets deferred. His requests were politely ignored. Meanwhile, at home, internal tensions only grew. 4. The famine, missteps, and the souring of public trust. In 1972-73, a severe famine struck Ethiopia's northern provinces of Tigray and Wollo. The scope of the disaster was monumental. Estimates suggest 40,000, 80,000 deaths occurred in Wollo alone. This humanitarian catastrophe struck at the heart of the regime's legitimacy. Even worse, as they were dying, Ethiopia exported grain, over 200,000 tons in 1973, the largest surplus since 1967. Many Ethiopians saw this as the regime placing foreign interests and trade above human survival. When Haile Selassie finally visited the region, the damage was done. The world saw a modernizing ruler. His people saw a remote monarch disconnected from their suffering. Meanwhile, he made no serious preparations for succession. Crown Prince Asfaw-Wasson. Haile Selassie, once heir apparent, suffered a stroke in early 1973. In Easter 1974, the emperor named the prince's son, Zara Jacob Haile Selassie, as acting heir. The move further destabilized the regime's structure. 5. The coup and the fall of the empire. By 1974, the storm was building. On 12th of September 1974, the military junta known as the Derg successfully executed a coup, deposing Haile Selassie. The Derg's rise was accelerated by a spark, a mutiny in January 1974 after a water pump failed near the Kenyan border. Officers of the 4th Army Division rebelled, seized their commanders, and broadcast demands for pay. The mutiny revealed deeper fractures in the imperial system. In the capital, food, fuel, and basic imports skyrocketed under drought and oil crisis pressure. Taxi drivers, then students and teachers, took to the streets. On 27 February, Selassie convened his councils, only to learn the 4th Division had joined the mutiny. His prime minister resigned. The emperor appointed new leadership, but the military rejected it. On 21st March 1975, the monarchy was formally abolished. The Derg, now publicly in control, implemented sweeping change. Parliament dissolved, constitution suspended, imperial titles abolished. 6. The Dark Night, arrest and murder. Haile Selassie spent his final months under house arrest. On 23rd of November 1974, the massacre of the 60 saw the summary execution of 60 former imperial officials in Kirchhell prison. Then, on 27 August 1975, the emperor died. Officially, the Derg claimed he had suffered prostate surgery and died of circulatory failure. But the truth was far more brutal. Court documents from 1994 revealed that 67 former Derg members had met on 23 August 1975 and resolved that His Imperial Majesty should be strangled because he was head of the feudal system. He was allegedly strangled on 26 August in his bed. Haile Selassie's body was hidden, found years later under a concrete slab beneath the palace grounds in 1992. His remains were exhumed, later reinterred at Holy Trinity Cathedral in Addis Ababa on 5 November 2000. The brutality of his death, the secrecy, the erasure of imperial symbols, all signaled the depth of change that Ethiopia was undergoing. 7. Legacy, icon, tyrant, symbol. Haile Selassie's legacy is contested. For some, he remains the Lion of Judah, a modernizing African monarch and a champion of black dignity, especially revered by the Rastafarian movement. For others, his rule exemplified authoritarianism, feudal stagnation, and failure to address internal grievances, especially in Eritrea and among Oromo and other communities. What's undeniable is this: his reign was the hinge of modern Ethiopian history. His fall was the dawn of a radically different era, one marked by socialist experiments, civil war, famine, and eventually the federal state Ethiopia is today. 8. Why this story matters. It shows how global geopolitics, Cold War, aid, strategic bases can shape the fates of nations and rulers. It highlights how internal governance failures, famine, succession vacuum, regional resentment, can topple even the gravest monarchs. It reveals how the manner of a leader's death can become emblematic of the larger trauma of a nation. For our Yekare history audience, this is not just a tale of monarchy, it's a case study in power, global influence, domestic fragility, and the price of being out of step with one's own people. 9. Visit the Yekare History Shop. As you reflect on Haile Selassie's story, remember that history lives in tangible form, in books, posters, maps, and artifacts. Our Yekare History Shop offers curated items, a detailed timeline poster of Haile Selassie's reign, a book bundle, The Last Emperor, Modernist Insights, plus Abyssinian Shadows, critique of his legacy, Ethiopian Empire-era map prints and artwork inspired by the Lion of Judah. Purchases help support our channel's research, video production, and educational outreach. Every item purchased is a way to keep the stories of Africa's past alive. 10. Closing reflections. Haile Selassie. His story is tragic and instructive. He was a figure of immense symbolism, from the global stage to the local Ethiopian village. His modernizing visions clashed with deep-rooted structures. His foreign alliances soared even as domestic legitimacy crumbled. Ultimately, he was brought down not by foreign armies, but by the internal contradictions of his rule. His death was not simply an end, it was a transformation. Ethiopia shed its 3,000-year-old imperial tradition and stepped into something new, complicated, and contested. Understanding that moment helps us understand the Ethiopia of today, and the lessons for any leader or nation balancing the global and the local, the past and the future. Thank you for watching. If you valued this episode, please like, subscribe, and support our Yekare History Shop. Let's continue to uncover untold truths and ensure the full story is told. For Africa, for history, for all of us.